Of course, Oregon football is among the elites. Heck no, what are you talking about? Oregon football, it's not elite. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Please like the video and subscribe as we march through the 2025 season and predicted records for everyone across the Power Conference landscape, including the only team in college football in 2024 that went wire to wire in the regular season and conference championship weekend, undefeated number one in the country, the Oregon Ducks. Add that to their resume under Chip Kelly of dominance of the Pac-12 and a national championship game appearance against Auburn. Then, of course, Mark Helfrich picking up the leftovers from Kelly, another national title game appearance against Ohio State in 2015. In the meantime, of course, Oregon has experienced Rose Bowl wins under Mario Cristobal, and Dan Lanning is winning just about all of his games and won the first Big Ten championship with Oregon appearing in the mighty Big Ten. Elite, right? No national championships. This would have to be the school that is in the number one position of all of college football having not won a national championship. Is it time here in 2025? Well, let's get to it because they certainly looked the part for much of last season, and they are the number one candidate to finally break through and get Dan Lanning in Oregon this national championship, because otherwise the program is rolling, and they roll through 2024 until they hit Pasadena, the Rose Bowl, and an Ohio State team that would not be denied. That game was 34-0 in the second quarter, so that raises some eyebrows. It's one thing to lose to an elite football team that was red hot and geared for a national championship run. It's another thing to get completely embarrassed and annihilated. Does that raise some questions that Dan Lanning's got an excellent program here, but there is still plenty of work to do? Let's start at the quarterback position because they have lost all sorts of productivity coming back from 2024, starting with Dillon Gabriel. You couldn't get more experienced than Bo Nix and Dillon Gabriel, the two most experienced quarterbacks in the history of college football, down to Dante Moore, who had a few starts at UCLA a few years ago as a true freshman. Oregon has lost about 70% of its offensive production, 70% of its tacklers, and about half of its sacks from that 2024 season. Dante Moore is a former five-star, and if they are trusting in him, if Dan Lanning is saying, this is the guy, he's the starting quarterback, we're putting everything on him, I'm going to trust Lanning. But otherwise, Dante Moore has not proven anything. But look across the country at how many teams, top teams, teams that are expected to contend for national championships, are going with unproven quarterbacks. Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, and others. What do we know about Dante Moore? Yeah, we know that he threw a litter of interceptions for pick sixes in his first shot at it with an inferior UCLA team. He will be surrounded by so much better talent and should be much better prepared with all that experience and all those reps under his belt. Noah Whittington is back after 540 yards rushing, 4.6 per carry, and 6 touchdowns. Also, Mekhi Hughes from Tulane, incoming transfer, 1,465 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns for Hughes. As, of course, Oregon loves to run the football, despite being known as a passing team. And Nick's throwing for 4,500 yards. Gabriel for 3,600. Would like Dante Moore to be supported more by a running game and kind of hide his inexperience until he gains that experience down the stretch of the Big Ten schedule. At the receiver core, they lose Tez Johnson, 83 catches, 10 touchdowns. Trayshawn Holden gone as well, 45 catches, 5 touchdowns. But the wide receiver unit is mostly hurt by the probable loss all season of Evan Stewart, incoming at one time number one wide receiver coming out of high school, went to Texas A&M, then transferred to Oregon, put up 8 touchdowns and 48 catches, had a huge game against Ohio State, was a bit absent from a lot of the games, but when he could really dominate a game, he could show it as he did against the Buckeyes. Evan Stewart may not make it back after an offseason injury, but Oregon does have the number one wide receiver coming in from high school football, DeCorian Moore, and also tight end Kenyon Sadiq, who might be one of the best in the Big Ten, if not the nation. Also, some reinforcements, including Gary Bryant, fine receiver, polished receiver, a lot of experience, came in from USC, injured much of last season. And also, you've got Malik Benson, incoming transfer from Florida State. The offensive line returns only one starter from Oregon, but it's still an experienced offensive line thanks to the transfer portal. The one starter held over is Apani Latloulu, who's a Remington candidate at center. The transfer portal you can thank for Emmanuel Pregnon from USC, and also the number one transfer portal player, Emmanuel World, the offensive tackle from Nevada. And don't forget about Matthew Bedford. He was picked up for last season, played just a handful of snaps, didn't get many reps before he was injured, but Bedford had 53 starts at Indiana. This offensive line comes back with 124 career starts. So the Oregon offense definitely has potential to be strong, but it's going to be up to Dante Moore working behind an experienced and strong offensive line. Now let's look to the defense. These guys are back. The top tackler on the team, Bryce Bocher, with 94. The top safety, Mateo Uiagalelei, with 9.5 tackles for loss. Outside linebacker, Titum Tuioti, and a ton of backups that got meaningful playing time. The losses are enormous up front with Derek Harmon, also Jordan Birch, and Jamari Caldwell. All three of those guys drafted high in the NFL draft. The transfer portal brings Bear Alexander via Georgia, then USC, and now Oregon. He can be dominant when he's focused. He's a former 5-star. Cornerback Theron Johnson of Northwestern and safety Dylan Thieneman coming in from Purdue provide reinforcements for a secondary that lost every starter from 2024. Special teams, usually a bugaboo at Oregon, has been elevated highly by Dan Lanning and also special teams coach Joe Lorig. The place kicker, Atticus Sappington from Oregon State, 27 of 30 kicked for the Ducks last year. Punter Ross James hit on a clip of 45.5 yards per punt, but still Oregon looking to improve. They brought in some competition in the form of Ferguson Reynolds from Boise State, who hit for 49.7 yards per punt last season. Oregon got pushed to the limit in non-conference play last year by Boise State down to the final play of the game and didn't necessarily have a yawner against Idaho in the opener. Their challenge this season may not be one. Oklahoma State comes in with one of the worst teams Mike Gundy has ever fielded. They play in Autzen Stadium in week 2. You also have Oregon State, and the Civil War continues, and I'm glad to see this between Washington State, and Oregon State, that those old Pac-12 rivalries in the Northwest continue. So the Ducks face those 2 non-conference games in weeks 2 and 4. Looking at the Big Ten schedule, no Ohio State, no Michigan. Those games basically, looking at the Big Ten schedule, no Ohio State, no Michigan. Those games basically replaced by Penn State and Indiana. The final stretch of the season somewhat challenging with a date at Kinnick Stadium against Iowa. You've got Minnesota, you've got USC, and then the final rivalry game at Washington against the Huskies, a series that Oregon has dominated in recent years. I'm looking at the Big Ten numbers in regards to wins and losses, the total conference, and of course the wins and losses have to balance each other out. And I've got Oregon at 9-3, 6-3 in the Big Ten. We will make our final predictions, of course, right before the season if we need to make a few tweaks based on what we hear in August. But for right now, we've got Oregon on the edge of the playoffs. They're a plus or minus -3 after going 12-0 in the regular season last year. Again, 9-3, 6-3 is the look right now. Leave your comments and questions down below. Please join us for our daily show, the College Football Show, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. See you then.